Actions speak louder than words. She's all talk. Put your money where your mouth is. These expressions reflect our preference for action over talk, as if the two were mutually exclusive. I challenge you, though, to think of any human action that isn't in large part carried out through our use of language, be it conversations, body language, or even social media. Words are used for more than exchanging information. Words are vehicles for action. While big data has created a lot of excitement for researchers, it is still the little data, the everyday talk that we engage in, that can impact our lives in local, situated ways, at home, at work, or in our community. The words we choose can frame issues in a particular way. Do we, for example, frame our stance on abortion as pro-choice or pro-life? Government spending as entitlement programs or our social safety net? Healthcare reform as Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act? Different words carry different connotations. Word choice matters. The study of how words do things is called discourse analysis, and tonight I'd like to share the work of doctoral students on the Discourse Analysis Research Team that I mentor in our college. One way of studying discourse is to tape record people going about their business, be it teaching children, having a meeting, or arguing with their spouse. Why would anyone want to do this, you ask? Well, if you've ever had to record yourself, say, teaching, and watch yourself later, you know how insightful, troubling, and even horrifying that experience can be. While we think we know everything that happened, after all we were there, it turns out we only remember a fraction of it, and imperfectly at best. Being able to listen to or watch recorded interactions repeatedly, transcribe them, and analyze what happened can provide a whole slew of insights into how particular choices of words and ways of framing can have an impact on what happens between people. This is fascinating in and of itself for people like me who study this for a living, but it also has practical implications. For example, Rachael Gabriel, now an assistant professor at the University of Connecticut, was interested in how Tennessee was going to go about reforming our teacher evaluation system. So she went to Nashville and recorded all of the advisory committee meetings for her dissertation work. Through her analysis, she found that the educational consultants who were hired to facilitate these meetings greatly influenced decision-making moments by tabling some topics, encouraging discussion on others, or redirecting conversations entirely. The role of these paid consultants raised questions about how democratic the committee's decisions really were. Having the power to set the agenda matters. Doctoral candidate Joshua Johnston was curious about how new teachers developed a teaching identity when they were doing their internships in public school classrooms. He recorded a year's worth of mentoring meetings, noting how at times the interns would distance themselves from situations where things didn't go well. They would, for example, say things like, "The students really didn't want to work hard today," instead of, "I wasn't able to motivate the students today." These insights helped Joshua develop mentoring strategies to help new teachers take more ownership for their decisions. How we describe events matters. Finally, doctoral candidate Elizabeth Price was interested in how schools determine whether students are eligible for special education services. She recorded over 70 meetings between school personnel, parents, and students. And she noticed that when a long turn of talk ended with, "If you don't have any questions, you can just sign and date here," surprisingly, parents and students rarely asked questions. However, when parents were asked open-ended questions throughout the meeting, such as, "What are your concerns about your daughter's education?" they asked more questions. A question asked at a critical juncture could change the entire course of the conversation. How we ask questions matters. These days, we engage in a good bit of everyday talk online. It's crucial to pay attention to this online talk if we really want to understand today's human experience. Conversations on blogs, virtual worlds, and on social media are creating new social realities worth exploring. This online talk, too, can be understood by listening between the lines and analyzing what has been called the persistent text of our online interactions. For example, unlike face-to-face classes, classes that take place in the virtual world's second life are automatically recorded and thus can be analyzed to help us see what learning looks like in these environments. Such is the topic of doctoral candidate Doug Canfield's dissertation. Mary Alice Varga, now an assistant professor at the University of West Georgia, has been analyzing conversations in online grief support groups. She was interested in whether bereavement counselors should consider these online groups as a resource for their clients. After analyzing a year's worth of messages, it turns out that sharing stories of loss, rather than advice on how to cope, had an important function in these groups. It is through stories that the newly bereaved demonstrate their grief, and it is by sharing their own stories in return that the community members encouraged continued participation in that group. Storytelling matters. And finally, the topic everyone in Tennessee is talking about in October, online and offline, yes, you got it, football. Traci Yates did a pilot study on female professional football fans at a sports bar, where she noted the incredible amount of work required by women to establish themselves as legitimate NFL fans. Traci is now looking closely at how female fans use insider jargon, inclusive pronouns, and other ways of talking to establish their identity as legitimate fans on an NFL fan website. While many people believe that on the internet no one knows you're a dog, as the famous New Yorker cartoon once said, research is showing this isn't quite true. It is through our everyday talk, then, that we get things done. Hopefully, these examples have illustrated that how we say things often impacts how well they get done. Understanding the importance of everyday talk can help committees function more effectively, teachers and students work more productively, and service providers successfully meet the needs of their clients. Armchair discourse analysis can be great fun, though usually irritating to those who you are analyzing, but I encourage you to give it a try. Notice how questions are asked and what kinds of responses follow. Notice how actions are justified and whether those justifications are accepted. Above all, notice how things could have been said differently and perhaps with better results. Thank you.